Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Unlimited, where we interview really inspiring people who have taken the words limited out of their dictionary, out of their lives, and really created huge change and huge miracles in the world. Tonight, we're joined by Adora Winquist. She is an associate of Kyle, who brought us to her tonight. And we're so excited to have her. Adora, welcome.
Thank you so much, Zenka. I am absolutely delighted to be with you all this evening.
Yeah, I am just so inspired by the Soul Institute and what you're doing for so many reasons. And I was we just started this purpose lab this year where we really felt that getting people to live in their purpose was the fastest way for them to witness miracles and kind of almost see this like amazing attractor force in their life. And they say to us, like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe I met someone, because they leaned into that, what you call a path of passion or their soul purpose. And I met one of my favorite scientists. She doesn't call herself a scientist, Lynn McTaggart. She calls herself an author, but she is actually doing incredible scientific work. But she told, when we interviewed her about how she found her purpose and what her purpose is, she said one of the advice that she had for people was to go big, dream big. And I really resonated with you on that, because your mission is to get 25 million people to live their soul purpose. So please tell us what that even means to you, how that came to you as your mission, and kind of tell us the beginning of that. Where did that start for you? Why did that come in for you?
So many fun questions to answer. So I think I want to start with what it means to live in your sacred soul purpose and your passion. Because this is something that, as seekers, right, we are collective seekers of truth. And to embody your unique truth, you are ultimately on the path to, or as I like to call it, the quest to find your purpose. And so part of my vision for the Soul Institute is in the 25 million, which I think is a very tangible number, and perhaps even a bit shy on what's possible. But of course, we have to we have to put a stake in the sand somewhere. And I love your motto of go big or go home, because that's always been really, really close to my heart. But ultimately, first, we need to find what that purpose is. So purpose, the word alone can sometimes be confusing. So in the most simple fashion, I like to say that you want to find what lights you up each and every day. Like when you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed, you feel passion about this. And then you want to find all of the tools that are accessible for you, right? Because there's so many different tools and alchemical allies that we can call upon. But because each individual soul blueprint is unique, just like your fingertip, what works for you may not work for someone else. So it's about finding that purpose, and then you find a way to live from that place of what lights you up each and every day, until before you know it, you are thriving in all facets of your life, because your birthright is a life of plenty, plenty of health and wealth and love and self-expression that is perfect for you. So that's a snippet. Does that make sense? Oh, I think you're muted.
We have a little problem with the live stream, so I'm
Ah,
here. dealing with that. But
Oh, I can keep chatting then and talk more while you're fixing
well,
that.
well, so how would you define your purpose? And when people find, oh, that lights me up, or oh, I like that, how does that glob together into the
Mm,
highest purpose? Like,
mm,
you know,
Yeah, and how does somebody's like creative purpose maybe differ from their soul's purpose, which would be a longer journey,
mm,
right?
hmm. Well, let's start with the idea that we come into this physical embodiment with a soul blueprint, right? So you can think of this as almost an architectural map, right? That is filled with elements of what you have come into this life to understand and embody, um, to realize, to let go of, and ultimately to reconcile for the evolution of your soul, for your soul's growth. So, because we have the wonderful experience of coming into this body in a state of profound forgetting, there are elements of our blueprint that we don't remember. However, we have these many, many, many maps. So, if you think back to your early childhood and you think about some of the things that you really, really loved doing, maybe it was spending time in nature. This for me was definitely a place of my comfort. It was my solace, because many of us come into this world, and as we're growing through our core developmental phases and stages of growth, we have challenges. So we start to look at our early childhood, what I call our treasure map. And the treasure map is the areas of your life when you were young that were challenging. So for me, my home environment was very challenging. So I loved being outdoors. I would walk in the woods. I would connect with the trees and the flowers. And I used to collect worms and all sorts of peculiar things, or delightful things, depending on how you look at that. But nature was my comfort, it was my solace, and I talked to the trees. I could hear them, the flowers, and it made me feel safe and comforted. So when you think back to your childhood, there were elements that were very natural to you, whether it was playing dress up, whether it was spending time in nature, pretending that you were teaching or pretending that you were mothering. I mean, we have all of these different facets of play, but some of them really are what lights us up. But we forget about that, right? Because we go through many of the challenges that life is designed to bring us. And the one analogy that I'd love to explore tonight, or to kind of center the mind on, is that you are a diamond. And so, as a diamond forms through heat, through great, great pressure, well, we all have adversity and challenges, right, that we've experienced in our lives. And certainly, when we look to our early childhood treasure map, we can see a lot of these points of where there was adversity, right, where there was that heat or pressure. But the beauty is that you have come into embodiment to remember that you are a multifaceted and multidimensional being, and that you are here to polish the edges that may be a little bit sharp, or polish the areas where you haven't really felt like you've been shining, right? Because the truth is, you are brilliant and your light is magnificent. Your light is unique to you, and there is a divine frequency, like a golden essence inside of you. So, as you think back to the course of your life, and we'll explore some of these ideas about these different maps that are like what I like to call cosmic breadcrumbs, that can bring you to your path of purpose, your high path of meaningful purpose. And when we really start to look at your soul blueprint and look at the places of your soul purpose, well, creativity is always an element of that, because creative expression is how we create reality here. And we do it in many, many ways through our emotions, which is such an important part of the journey of coming into your path of purpose and learning how to understand and harness those emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it can be a rough process, but we always say that the negative things that happen are actually the alarm bell. It's like your soul going knock, 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 knock. You didn't hear me the last time. I'm gonna knock a little harder until you get
Yes.
it. And then you get over it because you have, after that hard thing that you're like, wow, I have to deal with this because it's in my face now.
Yes.
You don't have to deal with it again as long as you can humbly figure out what your soul was trying to communicate with you.
Well,
That
we
is so,
recently
so,
heard a
yeah.
story where they were on the road to being a country music superstar. And through a series of events, they got completely derailed. They met somebody like you who channeled for them and said, look, your soul came here to be a healer, and and you're going to keep getting help to diverge your path until you take that direction. And he did, and he became a famous healer. So,
but it took breaking his car
it
down,
took breaking
right?
his car down,
like
yeah.
things like that, where they literally his soul or whoever broke his car, and he was like, "Wow, I was supposed to go here to go to this next part of my singing career, and here I was redirected." So it's interesting. So where was the seed where you were like, I'm starting the Soul Institute. This is what I need to be doing. This is like, how did that all come into being?
Wow. Well, that really brings us on a journey. And so I think I want to start with that because what you said about the redirection, or right when your soul is knocking and something happens where you just cannot look away, right? You have to really be on point. And I like to call that the sacred pattern, right? Because we all have these patterns that sometimes first show up as challenge, adversity, or what we term as a limitation or limiting belief. But the further that we explore into those patterns, the more that we can find the gold that exists within them, that exists within us ultimately. And so when I go back and start pretty young, I mentioned that I loved nature. Well, the other thing that I didn't love so much was chores when I was young. And so after dinner, when it was time to do the dishes, I would quietly excuse myself to the restroom, where I would mix perfumes and powders of my mother's and anything that I could find in there for the entirety of cleanup. Now, this went on for years and nobody noticed. And in fact, until I said something when I was an adult. But this was really indicative of part of my journey. And so when I was in my teens, I would get bronchitis. And so I had moved away. I had moved to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I didn't have health insurance and I didn't have a lot of money. And so somewhere I'd heard I kind of remembered something about herbalism. And this is another kind of interesting cosmic breadcrumb that maybe I'll come back to later if we have time. But I went out and I bought a new book and 5 different herbs, and I went home and I made a tea. And I was amazed by how quickly my lungs healed without the use of a heavy codeine like substance, which I received a lot when I was young and sick, because I was sick quite a bit. So from this point, I started making teas and tinctures for anyone that was not feeling well that said, yes, I'll try something that you've made. And this led me to essential oils and at the same time studying hands-on healing. And at this time in the early 90s, the Reiki was the primary modality of energy healing. And so I thought, well, this is really interesting because I've had this attunement and I'm seeing colors around people. And why do the colors change depending on how someone feels? And I wonder, um, can this help me? Because I was also challenged significantly with depression, with anxiety, and some of these other emotional difficulties that come from growing up in a very dysfunctional, traumatic environment. And I'm sure so many of the folks that are listening can identify with this, but this really brought me deeply into my path. And so the next curiosity I had was, well, I wonder what would happen if I take these essential oils, mix them together, and then infuse them with vibration, right, with Reiki energy, and then see how that affects not only the people that I'm working with, but really myself, because I'm silently suffering. And this really began a journey of both my healing practice and my first aromatherapy company that I started at the same time. And you might think, well, Adora, how does this have to do with the Soul Institute? Well, ultimately, this journey, this kind of tandem path of working with essential oils and working with energy medicine that, of course, expanded into many different modalities. And then ultimately, many years later, through the 4-year program at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing, which is incredible. Um, so I really continued working with individuals from many different demographics, trauma survivors, women, veterans, hospice patients, HIV patients, those more of a corporate background looking for peak performance. And I went on to build the first aromatherapy brand, national brand of aromatherapy blends for chakra balancing or a clearing, and then took that to a national and international perspective. And that was really, it was wonderful. But, you know, of course, it looks much easier from the outside because it took many, many, many years, blood, sweat, tears, you know, on hands and knees, and many, many hours of dropping oils and cutting labels and so forth. And I sold that business about 7 years ago, because I knew it was time for something new. My soul was calling me, and I just couldn't stay any longer. And I went and wrote my first book on how we can heal at the DNA and ancestral level with all of these modalities, alchemical allies. And then about 3 years ago, the Soul Institute came forward. And I really wanted to create a series of thought leadership that was accessible one anywhere as long as you had a Wi-Fi. So our offering is free content, everything from recipes, information on crystals and energy, medicine techniques, and healing and formulas, to many different varieties or gradations of paid experiences, retreats, programs. I have a year-long program, but that's kind of the long journey of how the Soul Institute came about. Because the life is about it's a journey, right? It's not the destination. So that was a long answer to your question.
Yeah, that's really beautiful because I love how you were guided to, you know, heal in all these different ways, you know,
Mm,
Reiki, plants. I have a question about the aromatherapy before we move on to this
yeah.
next phase of your life that you made. So is I understand about essential oils, like you can put them in your bath, you can put them on your skin, you can put them, in even water, like flower essences and things like that. But when you spray it, is it more something that's pleasing to your soul, or is the plant
Mm.
frequency what's actually happening to you?
This is such a beautiful and intuitive question, Zenka. Thank you. So the plants are similar to us in that they are both biochemical and alchemical. So imagine one essential oil. Let's take rose because it's a beautiful example. Rose essential oil can have over 300 chemical constituents. And those chemical constituents make up the beneficial effect in our physiology, right? Where it's a nervine, it's relaxing for the nervous system. It helps to regenerate cells, both within the skin, our largest organ, and also the liver, which is really a profound medicine. So many, many different physiological benefits, but also it represents the quintessence of the plant, right? The vibrational patterning, the cosmic connection, as well as the sacred codes of frequency that is held within the aromatic that helps to activate specific codes of light, of memory, remembrance, of wisdom and divine knowledge that are held within us from our soul to our cells, right? And our cells meaning not just the physical representation of the cells, but also our own sacred geometry, which is our DNA, right? Those links to our bloodlines. So the aromatics, when used specifically via inhalation, are truly a quantum medicine, and I believe a medicine of great innovation for our future that we are collectively just beginning to tap into.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
So interesting.
that's amazing. The body of information you have. I'm curious, how did that lead you into what you're doing now? Like, what did you take from that? Because I was
Mm,
already getting kind of the
mm,
feeling about how the soul was coming out there. It was representing itself, and you were seeing a
mm.
much longer journey. So, can you describe like kind of how that led you to where you are now?
Yes, I would have to say that the aromatics for me were a master key in my own awakening. And, when I was a teenager, maybe about 16, 17 years old, we had a camp up in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, in a very like small town with an old-timey five and dime, with a soda fountain. It's not, the soda fountain isn't there anymore, but it was when I was young, and it was so lovely. And there was a small bookstore there that was in someone's garage. And my mom and I would go on the weekends and we loved to read and, picking up I don't know, whatever I was reading then, Stephen King maybe or something. And the gentleman, the proprietor, started to have like a set of books for me. And so when I would come and he'd say, "Oh, I have these books for you. I put them aside, and I think that you should have them." And I thought, well, I love books. These look really interesting. Madame Blavatsky, esoteric philosophy. Okay, I'm intrigued. And then there would be ones on shamanism, and there would be ones on plant medicine, right? Essential oils or herbs. And so each time I went, there would be these more and more interesting books. And so he said, you don't remember this about yourself right now, but you're going to need these when you're older. And I thought, well, okay, this seems a little strange, but these books look awesome. Okay. And there were also a number of them, like late 1800, early 1900 medical texts, which I thought were brilliant with things like phrenology and homeopathy, and of course the plants. So I received these and I kind of would look through them, but I away. And then when I was 18 and I was in California, Northern California, living there, I had my first experience with a local shaman, a medicine man for the fall equinox that involved the plants. And so there was like a door of memory that was reawakened. And then when I found the essential oils, and I realized that when I smell something that is so beautiful, that in literally in that moment, my mood changes, my emotions change, something opens up, and for me then the awakening began to happen very quickly, and I was drawn to the stars and seeing the energy between the trees on a ridgetop and how they share energy with ease and not expectation, and the oils, and still to this day, over like 30 years, they are my medicine consistently, because it is a way that we can modulate our emotion, our emotional response, our nervous system, and our consciousness like that.
So, so in our research, we have come upon this statistic that says that only 10% even know their soul's purpose, and only 5
Mm,
have kind of the guts to pull it off, to go for it. So
yeah.
was wondering, why do you think that those are the results that we have as a society? What's gone,
Mm,
and why do people find it hard to find their purpose? What's going on with the society? And then at an individual level, what's going on with people? Why is this so elusive?
mm, mm. So this is really at the crux of our quandary, paradox, and potential right now. And so we come in with this magnificent soul blueprint, right? Which of course is unique for everyone, because what one person's soul purpose may be is going to be very different, just like our fingerprints, right, than another. But then we come into this very dense energy of planet Earth, where the fear matrix here, the template of the fear matrix here is very set. And then we come in through our ancestral lineage, right? Now, so to remember that each and every cell in your body, trillions of cells, right, is imprinted with intelligence, with energy, with information, and your cells communicate with each other through biophotons, which is essentially light, right? So the term "you're a light being" is actually true from a quantum physics perspective. So in each cell, though, it's not just every experience that you've had since the moment of your conception, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but also through your parentage, your bloodlines. So those unresolved emotions and patterns and belief systems that are held through your mother bloodline and father bloodline are also living and breathing inside of you in this very moment, right? As a gift, as an opportunity, because that is part of our evolutionary map and our evolutionary potential. And from that perspective, right, the collective, there are elements of the collective consciousness that you've also have a very clear connection to, a piece, right, that you've said, yeah, I'm going to bring this in and I'm going to transform it within myself for the greater good of all. So when you come in, you have two primary tasks, right? You have your personal life task that's connected to your ancestral lineage and your soul purpose. And then you have your collective or global planetary life task. So just to have a concept of this, right, from a higher level, and then we descend into the earth. Here we are. It's heavy here. There's a lot of fear. There are emotional patterns. There are belief systems. There are ways of thinking that we have come into in order to transmute and transcend. But there are also many, many pitfalls here. So we are conditioned through our family treasure map, right? We're conditioned through school. We are conditioned in society on so many different levels. And one of the challenges that we're opportunities, I'll say, right? So every challenge is an opportunity. But one of the areas that we're facing right now is that the Earth was projected to be at a higher rate of consciousness than it is. Right. So, and because of that, our children are coming in and they're far more awake, aware, right? But the systems on every level aren't supporting. So what happens? We sink into the pitfalls of things like victim consciousness, right? Of feeling that we are alone, that we don't belong, that we're isolated, that we're unworthy, that we're less than, that we are not one with Creator. And yet, there is a knowing of this greater love, right? This perfect union, this oneness, this desire to commune in the deepest way with ourselves, each other, and the earth. So here we have a great paradox. We have it personally, we have it through the family lines, we have it in society, and we have it from a planetary global perspective. And yet, the holy power that is encoded upon our souls knows not of limitation and is designed to triumph. The human spirit is designed to triumph. So that is the flip side of our opportunity.
Exactly. And that's the work of both of our organizations to, somehow get it in our heads that this is way more unlimited than we ever have dreamed. And this is this chance opportunity we have to just let go of what holds us back because of those lineages, because of, like you said, the things that we were told, and question those things that we were told about ourselves. Question what is our choice. Adam and I had the strangest experience. One of our donors was like, oh, he had gifted me a hand printing, like a hand analysis.
Oh, cool.
And I had never gotten around to doing it. I was so busy. And then we were like, wow. And she said, wow, I can tell you your soul's purpose through your handprint. And I was like, fascinating. And so we went. And her name is Cynthia Clark. I think it's Ascension 17 is her site. It was fascinating. It was fascinating. And she said, so one of the things that was interesting that she said there's 4 types of people. There's like 10% of the population that are teachers that are here to support like the rest of them. She said there's another small percentage of peacekeepers that are just like, that's their deal. And there's another level of like a little bit higher wisdom keepers, but that's like only 12%, 20%, something like that. And the rest are here to learn about love and what that is, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, she's like, your biggest mountain, I forget what she called, like your objective is to become worthy of love. And it was the same for both of us. So it was like really interesting. And we were like, wow. And then she also told us, like, my purpose was to be a creative individualist. Like, she's like, you're supposed to be an artist or something. I was like, oh, I was an artist. Now I'm a software designer. She's like, oh, that's interesting. So she said, she's like, now an interesting thing, and she's read 7,000 people's handprints. So, and she also mentioned that we were Hathor, which was really cool.
Mm.
She was like, your fingerprints come before, like they're in the womb, like they're coming out there. And, this experience that we're in leaves you all these clues.
Yes.
And we have found that if you actually ask for a sign, like if you sincerely want to know your purpose, because one of the guys we interviewed, he's like, well, I don't know why there's only 10% who have found their purpose, but I have to ask you back that, like, how many of those 90% do you think even care or ask what their purpose even was, like even inquire about it. So this inquiry is such a powerful, like, your teacher will appear if the student is ready, so it's like, you're like, oh, if you get curious about this, all of a sudden all this stuff goes. And I am super curious about the Akashic records and the work you do, because, I have this like thing, this worthy of love thing. I can see already that it's back in my lineage. I can see that that's like, oh yeah, this is repeating. This is like happening, right? But the Akashic records, that's your other lives, right? Tell us about that process and what happens to someone's purpose when they start to see their Akashic records.
It's so powerful. It's so beautiful because everything is a pattern. And so from the simplest perspective, right? I'll take it macro for a second and then bring it back to the Akashic. From the simplest perspective, for anyone that's listening right now, that's like, oh, what is my purpose? Like, in this moment, a cosmic breadcrumb is to look at the areas where you've had the greatest challenge, the greatest repetitive patterns of challenge and adversity, to know that your sacred purpose, your soul purpose, is also held as the gift that is within that. So it is through the deepest pain that we've experienced in this life that we find our greatest both liberation and fulfillment. And these two elements, liberation and fulfillment, when you are living and breathing and embodying your soul purpose, like these are the two primary expressions that you have. And it's not always like, oh, well, I have $1 million in my bank account, right? Or whatever the next thing may be, because it's always a work in progress. We are, right? These beautiful canvases. But it's that regardless of what is happening around you, the place of joy, fulfillment, truth, alignment, connection, and liberation, that you know that you are living your life's purpose, is just what you've come for, right? So that's a little seed, mustard seed, that I'm planting for everyone that is listening, because even where we are right now, this is sacred space. So there is there is a vibrational transmission that you're receiving through harmonic induction, right? That is awakening places within you. And maybe those places were curiosity, maybe they were dormant, or maybe they were like, oh yeah, this is like a confirmation for that, right? So throughout this time together in communion, in sacred space, you are also receiving, right? So your intention in this moment is very, very potent. So let's come now to the Akashic records, because I think there's a great deal of curiosity, but also misunderstanding from this perspective. And I'll share a brief story on this. I'd always been very curious about this idea of past lives. And also, when I started on my journey, I entered into the Rosicrucian organization, which some of you may be familiar with, a very old mystery school. And some of the practices in there, it brings sometimes for some individuals past life information forward. And so this started to percolate a little bit, and I was getting these glimpses. And then I went to Egypt for the first time. And I had an experience at the Sphinx and Great Pyramid where I saw all of these pathways beneath it. And it was almost like there were pathways within me that were opening at this time. And if you've been there or if you've experienced it, and of course if you had the Hathor connection and you've been there, right, I share that as well, that I'm certain there were many activations in memory that were recalled at that point. So there were elements that started to populate within me and then also in my healing practice. But it would only come in glimpses at first. And then through the years, right, the decades now, more and more information would come. But it wasn't until a few years ago where the Akashic records really clicked in, because I never called it Akashic record work before that. It was just really past life exploration and looking at things, but more from a distance perspective sometimes. And a few years ago, I was given a book, Your Soul's Journey Through Time, by a woman named Roberta Herzog, who was a primary Akashic record reader for about 30 some years. And she passed away about 12 years ago. Her book is extraordinary. And so I was reading it and I got on the phone with him and I was like, this is incredible. I feel like so much memory being activated. And I was reading it and I had this sphere, golden sphere that I saw in my room. And he said, well, this was the confirmation that I was waiting for. And so he actually passed me her legacy of her work. At that time, and the book, which is also I'm pretty sure it's available on our website right now, and also on Amazon. And it's really the most comprehensive book I've found on the records to date. But after this it woke something else. It was like a whole other pathway or door opened within me. And my work up until that point had been really very much focused on the DNA, the bloodlines, ancestral, and how we're connecting from the soul to our cellular consciousness as well as our subconscious. And then through this receiving of Roberta's legacy, I started to get much more information in a client session, a reading on the records. And then what I realized was, it's one thing to get an Akashic record reading, which is helpful, right? It helps to explain things so you have an understanding. But what's really possible is with the DNA work and cellular consciousness that there is an unwinding of energy and different configurations that can happen when the individual receives the information, connects the dots, and we do it in a very interactive way. And then oftentimes what happens is that there are gifts, latent gifts that are held within both your soul and your ancestral bloodlines. And they're designed to awaken at specific, what I call marker moments in time. And sometimes those points are where you've made a connection or misconception has been eliminated, or certain tipping points in your healing have occurred. And then there is even deeper awakening. And so the acceleration is very, very rapid in terms of someone's consciousness, and then remembering, oh, yeah, That's why I love this. That's why I had that experience. Okay, this one was really uncomfortable. It caused me a great deal of pain, but now it makes perfect sense. It's like, coming into a large home and turning on all the lights, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. That's so fascinating because we do have these moments and they do seem, I just, they seem like a treasure hunt. And I love how you, Adora, and the Soul Institute have these languages around, what was the treasure of your childhood? Like, the diamond, what are you unlocking? Because that's really where your brain can get curious. And that's where you can shed all the loops and patterns, is curiosity in the brain. Now, I want to take us to your website real quick here. This is at thesoulinstitute.co. And you can find, she's got all these incredible programs: the love frequency, divine feminine, modern alchemy, which is so great, love frequency, right? Meditation, ceremony, Akashic records, private sessions, pathway membership plans, events and retreats. So there's all these really cool things. And when you scroll down on the homepage, we can also see all these different, there's your book and other things there. So this is really great. I also want to direct you guys to Adora Winquist's Instagram if you're looking for these incredible bits of wisdom, Adora, that you are bringing to the world. You're obviously an old soul, and we're so grateful that you've remembered some of these evolutionary points of view, because this whole, the frequency of plants, all this stuff is new. And so you have been such a pioneer in bringing this forward. As you have mentioned, it hasn't always been easy, but it's rewarding. We're on this, Adam has a really great question for you. And I also want to remind everyone that we are going to be going to questions soon. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand. So there's a couple announcements to make about the Starseed Academy. We just did a big show last night with Scott Cadamus on our 4 different new season 7. These are our research teams. These are 8 to 12 people in a very tight group that are really unlocking and researching these things. We do off-planet remote viewing with Alan Steinfeld. There's 1 spot left in that, I believe. Rapid intuition with Jessalyn. And this is really amazing because she covers light language, telepathy, remote viewing, all these things. If you're looking on how to find what your clairs are, this is a great course to jump into. Coffee Rain is going to be doing Starseed channeled art. We're learning a lot about contact with other realms, and how important dreams are, and how important theta states are. When you're drawing, you're automatically in that theta state. And that theta state is where you program your dreams, right? So if you want something in your life, you think about it right before you go to bed, because your brain is going to get you pass through theta on its way to delta. So this is a really great way to use your non-logical mind, right? Your non-rational conscious mind to figure out some very important soul path questions for yourself. So you're going to be channeling art for other people. You don't have to know how to do art. Like, it can be, basics, but it's a really cool exploration and another way to get into your other access points of your mind. And Adam, do you want to say something too about Awakening Induced Lucid Dreaming, your team?
Yeah, well, we're able to expand the team a little bit. So if you're interested, we are kind of full, but we could take 1 or 2 more people if they were the right people and the right fit for the team. And in this, we start with waking induced lucid dreaming and then go into advanced lucid dreaming techniques, including having multiple lucid dreams simultaneously and time dilation. So yeah, if you're interested, drop us a line and you can follow us to get more information.
Yeah, so again, this is at starseedacademy.org, and this is starting next week. Season 7 is next week. So if you are getting that voice in your head, jump in, but don't delay. We're also tomorrow night, we're going to be launching our new LightNet platform software, the Purpose Lab, the Addiction Lab, and the Fashion Lab. So we're going to be talking about how our collective intelligence software works, some of the patterns of people looking for their purpose and how they've done it. We're going to invite you into that whole world. And on this page, you can find this from the calendar. You can specify what are your interests in each lab, the levitation lab, the contact lab, paralysis lab, etc. So this can be a great way to get in the right groups. So again, Adora's site is the soulinstitute.co. Encourage you guys to check that out. We're dropping it in the live stream as well. And Adam, you have the next question. And I just want to remind people, if you do have a question and you're a member and you're in the Zoom room, you can raise your hand using the bottom tray for reactions, and just raise your hand. So go for it, Adam.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to commend you for what you're doing. We do a lot of interviews, and people have asked me, even recently and repeatedly, what does heaven on earth look like? And without doubt, I always begin with, it's filled with people who know their purpose. And they're bringing all that heart energy forward. And whatever it is they're doing, everything that's made. And so that's how I envision it, that everything in our lives that's made by the human world would be made with that love and compassion for following that purpose. So thank you for helping people to find that. I'm wondering about what kind of methods and techniques, methodologies, how do you help people? What are the things that you use to help them?
Sure. Well, I just want to say, Adam, you just articulated that so beautifully, because I feel ultimately those of us that are awake, those of us that are awakening, we will come to an inkling that a big piece of our collective purpose, right? When we talk about collective upliftment, well, it truly is recreating and co-creating heaven on earth. But it starts first with us, right? And the journey is within. So to answer your question, I think that's where I'll start. My new body of work and what I teach at the Soul Institute and through our programs. And I have some upcoming retreats at Kripalu in Massachusetts and Omega Institute in New York. Those are both in August. And then a trip to southern France for the fall equinox, which will be really beautiful. But this idea of modern alchemy, and this is really such a beautiful kind of amalgamation of wisdom from the natural world, right? Because Earth is medicine. The Earth is medicine. Nature is medicine for us. And so I came to this actually a couple of years ago. I started to say, okay, what's next for me? And I had kind of preliminary put some ideas down for the Soul Institute, but then I had a very challenging personal experience, right? My diamond was on fire. And really the crux of that has to do with my name, Adora. And so, and this was related, Adora is part of my previous business name. And so as I was in the alchemical inferno, right, with my diamond, I had to do a deep dive on, well, what does it mean to me? My birth name is Dorothy. And Adora came to me through an interesting series of synchronistic events my first year at the Brennan School. And so as I was in this place of being really activated, but also curious, I went into the meeting. Well, what does the name Adora mean? Well, it means to honor. It means to adore. It means beloved. And it really hit me at that point that Adora for me, because the name came this first year, when I was in the Brennan School 20 some years ago, it came at a time where I really desired a teacher, a healer in a deeper way. And so as I was exploring this more, you saw the love frequency that is on the website. Well, the love frequency is really about this journey inward, into our sacred human hearts to make what the Sioux said was the longest journey that we'll ever make in life is from the mind to the heart. And the love frequency is a way that we can come back into our hearts to remember what it means to honor and adore ourselves as the beloved, right? Because the temple of the beloved is within your heart, right? That aspect of divinity, that emanation of creator of divinity that you are. So this idea of the love frequency is how I began the idea of modern alchemy, which essentially has 5 pillars. And the most important pillar is the love frequency, because without love, our life doesn't have meaning. And it is the love that we find for ourselves within ourselves that can transform and create and heal everything. And it is within the center of the heart that we access the 0 point field of limitless creation, right? Well, how do we get there? We get there through this moment, right? Through the alchemy of this present moment when the doorway opens and the threshold of the beloved is before us. Well, that space that we enter, we can transform the past and transmute the places of limitation or pain to unlock that golden essence that is within us, and then sculpt and shape a new future, right? That is more deeply aligned to our soul, our heart, our true longing, and our purpose, right? Just through this moment. So that was essentially how I brought the idea of modern alchemy with these 5 pillars. So one pillar is love, one is essential oils, one is crystal healing, one is meditation, and one is practical alchemy like Akashic records or sound healing, solfeggio, or formulation, making your own medicine, because we require versatility, right? In each moment, in each season of your life, your sacred medicine is not what it was yesterday, because what was no longer is. Right. So in this process, the 5 pillars of modern alchemy, then I intertwine them into specific principles, process, and practice that is designed to transform and transmute the patterns that you have, right? To unlock that divine frequency within you. So one of the modalities is called ANR, aromatic neuro repatterning, right? And we touched on essential oils for a moment. Um, the profound way that we can use them, like and here's one, for example, this is from the chakra collection. It's called Mystic Vision, with very rare ancient oils like Davana and spikenard and bakul. So to roll it on and breathe it in with an intention in the moment allows you to shift your energy, shift your emotion, open your chakras, your energy field. But even more than that, it allows you to create a new memory cell because of the very powerful connection to your sense of smell in the brain, but specifically the limbic center and the amygdala that regulates so much of our mood, memory, and emotion. And for us to change, right, sustainably, I don't mean like feel good for a minute, but for sustainable change, we require both biochemical and alchemical allies. We require consistency in our sacred practices, and something that will drive the needle of transformation in a way that can help to support our neurochemistry, right? Reshaping the neural pathways, modulating the subconscious, right? Like your sacred garden, you got to weed out those belief systems, thoughts, and feeling patterns that don't serve you. So we use the aromatics through much of the practices because they are the most accelerated and sustainable way for you to transform and become that change that you long to be every day. So it's not just a moment like, hey, I went and I had a healing session or a meditation, or I went on a retreat and I felt great and it was awesome. And then slowly you're reverting back to the way you used to feel, your pattern of behavior, because we are creatures of habit, right? We do what we know, even when it doesn't serve us, even when it causes us pain and discomfort, because so much of our operating system is subconscious, right? It's that undercurrent that populates the belief system, activating the thought, right? Domino effect of the feeling. And suddenly we're acting and reacting in ways that are unconscious and often out of control. But we don't have to. And that's the gift of the process, the pathway of modern alchemy, is that the practices can be simple, accessible, and yet still profound, right? You don't have to go to a cave in the Himalayas for 5 years and sit in meditation to change. It's those consistent practices that become the stepping stones. And then before you know it, the stones become closer and closer together. And then you have a bridge, the bridge from who you are in this moment to who you are becoming in the next and the next and the next. So there are breath work practices, there is meditation, the aromatics for sure, the Akashic record work, the making your own medicine, because what is more fulfilling than knowing that you need something and then being able to create it, right? To create your own spirit medicine. So that's one of the things that I love to teach, because when you know how to make your own medicine and then how to download frequency into it, then there isn't anything that you're going to get from somewhere or someone else that's going to be better than that for you.
That's so fascinating. When I was in college, I did a documentary on perfume.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, just like interesting to me. And everyone talked about how that perfume reminded them of their mom or that time in their life or whatever. And so I really love the way you've structured that, saying like, okay, when you smell this, you're going to remember that we did this, that you already took this step. We're two steps now forward, and this is your anchor, because it's the
Yeah.
non-logical mind that's saying, yep, you did this, you went there, and this is where we're going. And this is it's interesting because it really does anchor your brain to that transformation. And that's really an issue right
Yes.
now with all this transformation we're doing. You go do a weekend and then you go back and no one in your life is, can even understand what you did. And then you can't, it doesn't fit anymore. And then you lose all the work you did. So all these
Yes.
kinds of things. I remember in preschool, my kid made me a spray, right?
Aw.
Of essential oils. Yeah. So it was like making your own medicine. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because at a
Mm.
fundamental level, just like you do, you're like, oh, my body was craving this. Like, you do know at a fundamental level.
Yes, it's so true. And so let's just take that one step further. So imagine you are going to begin your sacred practice, and maybe it's your meditation, maybe it's your prayer, maybe it's a forest walk or a walk at the beach, or something similar. So you have your oil, right? Because it's small, it's portable. You can pop it into your pocket, and you take it out, and you breathe it in for about 30 seconds while you're harnessing your intention. And this is key, right? Because this is about training ourselves to harness the power that exists within our soul, right? Holy power is encoded upon your soul. So you're breathing in, and now your intention is getting anchored in your brain, your body, your energy field, your mind, right? Conscious, subconscious, and connecting into superconscious. And even more, because the oils have a rare gift of being able to pass through the blood-brain barrier. And this is one of the reasons that it's paramount to use a pure essential oil. And that is pretty rare because there's so much adulteration in the market in this regard. But thinking about that, so the aromatics then are traveling through your body where your blood goes. Right? So this is a holistic medicine. They are able to pass through the cell wall to offer the full gamut of their phytonutrients, right, to your cells, but also through your bloodlines. It's really such a profound medicine. So let's stay with this idea that we're going to go into a meditation, and maybe, I don't know if there's time, but I can walk us through an experience, which would be really fun. But we would breathe it in, and then at the end of our meditation or prayer or sacred practice, then we would inhale it again. Now, what you've done is create a new memory cell, and then you've closed it. Because the limbic system is that lock and key, when you smell that same aroma again, it unlocks the memory and the energy, the consciousness, the frequency of that sacred time. So as you are using this, then you are reshaping those neural pathways for a higher, more deeply aligned expectation, energy, consciousness, frequency, and desire to know that there is far more than you've ever been led to believe that's available to you in each moment.
Yeah, so interesting. Tim, if you could unmute, I'm going to bring you down to ask your question.
Okay. This is great info, Adora. Really, you're so knowledgeable.
Thank
And
you.
I would like to pursue it. Where do I start as far as learning more about obtaining the pure oils? And, you know, this is kind of like step one with you. But like if I want to pursue it more, and
Yes.
where do I find, you know, that the quality information, and how do I have to just practice with different oils to see which ones trigger,
Mm.
which ones are triggers for the benefit?
This is such a beautiful question, Tim. Thank you for presencing this. So, on my website, on the soulinstitute.co, you'll find wonderful information on our blog, and maybe even I could see if I can put that in, if I could drop that in, one on sourcing in particular. There's also a number of different podcasts where I've talked about the essential oils and how you can source them. And then also in my book, Detox, Nourish, Activate, Plant and Vibrational Medicine for Energy, Mood, and Love, there's a pretty big segment there as well. Now, for probably the fastest way, I'm just going to see between podcast, and I can probably pick something off of one of my different past press pieces. So I'm going to drop this in the chat. It's probably the fastest thing.
So you need to experiment a lot with different oils to see which ones you're compatible with. Because I know when I go into a department store and I go buy the perfumes, I have a real reaction to some that isn't favorable. Yes. I mean, I can get real agitated, but I understand the benefits that I didn't quite realize were so deep and powerful. So thank you.
Oh, such my pleasure and great joy. So I would say this, the perfumes, of course, they elicit different feelings and emotions, but unfortunately, there's so many chemicals. And even in the essential oil market, there's a tremendous amount of adulteration. So think of it this way. There's only so much plant material, aromatic plant material that's grown each year and distilled. A good majority of that is for the flavor and fragrance industry. And up until a few years ago, the aromatherapy industry was not quite as in demand until people found out, like, oh my goodness, the antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal properties of these oils, that this oil can be an immunostimulant. Well, this is incredible. So more and more people wanted it. So there is a lot of adulteration. And if you don't know your supplier, more than likely what you're spending your money on is adulterated. So purity is paramount. Now, to answer your question about, do you have to try many oils? And one thing that I'll say is that there is experiencing the oil yourself is something that you can learn from in a way that you'll never find it in a book, even mine. Yeah. And that you will, through building your own intimate relationship with the plant and the aromatics, that you are going to wisdom and intelligence. And in that process, oh, let's see here. I don't know what happened with that, but there we go. In that process, you're building a lexicon for not only effectiveness or what resonates for you in the moment, because it will change, but also purity. And one of the things that has been really important to me is because I've spent so many years and resources on what I thought was a pure essential oil, especially in the beginning, is that you don't have to spend the time in, the resources to be able to determine that. And that's why I've talked so much about it and written so much about it. And I will go ahead and maybe, Zenka, if I can't find that blog in this moment, because we have so many on the website, I can send it to you and you can post it for the group. And I think that would be really helpful. And then also, of course, we have many different essential oils available on our website. And Zenka, I should have thought of this, but I didn't, but I'll make a LightNet code for 20% off anyone that wants to experience some of the aromatics or some of our any of our services there. So I'll make that and then I'll send that to you as well. I'll do that after we hang up tonight. Yes. I'm sorry, did you say?
Sort of showing this. So when you're on the soulinstitute.co, there's all the different, now there's a whole drop down here too. And I'm just scrolling down on this first page to give you an idea. And this is also part of a pop-up where you can learn more about that, but this is really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. We also have some new frequency elixirs, like the Victory elixir that I did for the summer solstice. And that has light codes of victory, frequency from the Angels of Victory, Mighty Victory, and Temple of the Sun. So that is a really high vibe, awesome new product there too. That one is for internal. So it's not aromatic. It's it has both flower and gem as well as other frequencies in it.
I love how you have a scientific mind and that you've gone to all these deep, deep learnings. Like you are a very, very knowledgeable person, which is so beautiful. And I remember, I'm a techie, so I love to see all the different things you can do. And there's a lot of different machines. They're about $30,000 and up where you can sit, with a practitioner that has bought one, and actually it'll look at your frequency and say, oh, because it also has the frequencies of all of these essential oils and also flower essences, well, crystals too, but in so this guy had loaded all of these different brands into his device, and he was like, oh yeah, his name,
by the way.
and it was insane because it was exactly what I needed emotionally. And it was some random company in Tucson, that I never, heard of. And it was just so interesting how the science is starting to catch up to all this, you guys. I ordered it and I put it, it was like, the flower essences where you just take it all, every day a little bit. I had it on my desk. It was amazing, the results that happened because of it. So I love that you're mixing all these different worlds, the transformation, the alchemy, the letting go, because we hold on to so much stuff, guys, it weighs us down. And
Yeah.
it's a true gift to be around someone like you that is saying like, hey, wait a minute, these are the ways where you can kind of like stop clinching these things that are
Yes.
back.
It's so true. And I love that you just said let go, because if we have time, I can share a very simple modern alchemy practice with your viewers and listeners that once you know this, you can pretty much use it anytime, anywhere. And this is the idea of modern alchemy, that it is practical, because our current day initiations, we're not going to the temple for 3 months. Right? Our initiations are in our everyday life. And so we need practical alchemy and tools to be able to navigate and modulate our frequency, our emotion, because emotion is like the joy juice of creation in this reality, right? So your emotion, your emotional freedom is so important. I think Tim, did you have your hand up again?
Adam has a question. We're closing out on the final moments. Tim, I think, did you have another question, Tim? Oh, I don't know what's going on. But someone is sharing their screen, so I'm going to share back here. Adam, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, I'm actually really curious about your retreats. And
Yes.
if you could kind of go through that a little bit. Yeah,
I'd
back
love
when
to.
you first mentioned them, I was like, I'll wait till later, make sure we had time and space for it. But yeah, if you could go through that and satisfy curiosity.
Well, thank you, Adam. One of my favorite things to do is to co-create sacred spaces for individuals to come together and create a accelerated momentum to quantum leap along their journey, our collective journey of self-mastery and evolution. And so coming up in Kripalu, the Modern Alchemy of the Heart Retreat, we're going to be doing immersive experiences in the elements. So essentially, I'll be bringing the oils and the crystals and doing the high frequency meditation activations, which I do. In fact, I do a one every month. It's free on Zoom, first Tuesday of every month. You're all welcome to it. And so in the Kripalu one, we'll have a water consecration ceremony, a phoenix rising fire ceremony for transmutation and letting go. We'll be doing I'll do a group Akashic record healing meditation, which is always a favorite at retreats. I do one of these in France too, in the sacred Druid forest before we go up to the grotto, where Mary Magdalene stayed in the cave for
Sorry
years.
for disturbing you. I like that background behind you, and the background is.
Thank you. The painting, I can maybe show it in a few minutes, the rest of the painting. So that is the Kripalu meditation, and it's really all about unlocking that wisdom and sacred purpose that is within you through these beautiful alchemical experiences. And of course, everyone's going to make their own medicine. And then at the Omega Institute, it is the love frequency retreat to access sacred self-leadership. And so what I'm going to be teaching are the 4 keys of sacred self-leadership through the love frequency, through the heart center, and then how you can use innovative co-creational principles to actually map out your manifestation process. So everyone's going to choose a key area that they want to transform and come into a deeper alignment and communion with their soul purpose, their soul blueprint, and then create it in their lives in a way that brings them greater empowerment and agency. And that's really the piece about sacred self-leadership. So that's going to be really beautiful too. And then France is a 10-day journey where we go to many different sacred sites associated with the divine feminine and Mary Magdalene. And I do ceremony every day for the 10 days with the activations and the oils and the crystals and the frequency, and of course, some of the Akashic record work, because those that are awakening right now, your soul is calling you, right? Even if it's a whisper at first or a much more vociferous voice, but that calling and that communion and that connection is really so holy, so beautiful, such a gift. And my great joy is supporting individuals that are like, yeah, I want it. I want to feel it. I want to live from it each and every day. And so all the different ways that we work with the alchemy to support you to remember who you are and why you're here, and that each moment and each step and each breath that you've taken since your first has led you perfectly here and now. Is the journey perfect? Well, it doesn't always seem like it from our third dimensional perspective, but there is such great perfection and beauty and magnificence that is held within you.
And that takes us back to your name as a remembrance that each and every one of you guys that's listening is adored.
Yes, yes.
Like it's that, there's none of us, like you said, that are the same. And that's why everyone counts, and that's why everyone's important. And that's why, that's that's the biggest regret people have on their deathbed, is just like missing, like living their life for someone else and
Yes.
missing their own uniqueness. And we interviewed my son for the Purpose Lab. He's 10 years old. He didn't want to be on camera. He like was hiding the whole time under pillows. But the one thing he said is, no one can tell you your purpose.
Yes, so true.
And that's the same thing with this awakening journey. Like at the end of the day, you have to do it alone, but you can do it together. You can do it you can do it with this book, this fascinating book, like about, you can do it with the aromatherapy, you can do it with your friends. And that makes it less scary, more fun, more exciting. And so then just remember, that when you look outside of yourself, it's in the faster way, like you said, is going to your heart. Like that's, your
So
heart,
true.
your love frequency module. So I really appreciate how you've brought in all the wisdom traditions, from the mystery schools to the science to everything, into really diverse ways to remind, have those chunks of memory that you talked about at the beginning that drop in, like getting those ticking along, so you're at the bridge, so you're, that next step, that next step, that next step. And I always quote, this is a stairway to heaven. It's one step at a time. It really having, it's one step at a time. And we're climbing this together. And it's super fun because I'm starting to see what's happening to the world and to each other. And it's beautiful because your purpose is helping other people want to do their purpose, because what you've done is so beautiful and who you are is so beautiful, and the effect you're having. And I think I will always remember for the rest of my life, you're like, oh yeah, I mean, 25 million. I mean, that's like completely like reasonable. Like, I mean, if not even low, like,
Right.
yes.
Got to start somewhere, right?
Yes. And I believe in you, Adora. I believe in your message. I believe in your community. I believe in the dominoes that you're kicking open for us, the rose in your mouth, the whole opening that you're bringing to the world. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Zenka and Adam. Like, what a true delight and honor to be with you. And what you're doing is amazing, absolutely amazing. In fact, I think maybe you might need a frequency lab or a plant and vibrational medicine lab. You know what I'm saying?
So cool. So cool. Amazing, amazing. Thank you again, Adora, for joining us tonight. And we will be including in the replays the code that she's mentioning that she's going to give for the 20% off. And I wish we could do more retreats. It's just like we're trying to do software, but I do honestly believe that retreats are a way for you to get out of your patterns, because you're not in even the frequency of your house, or you're the frequency of your job, or you're like whatever, you're like, you are literally primed.
The availability of rapid progress is definitely there in the so
yeah,
I really,
it's so true.
To that, if you have space left on it, maybe you have a
waiting. Yes, we do. I think France might only have a few spaces left, and but I know that Omega and Kripalu do, because they're really beautiful, spacious venues. And I think maybe, Zenka, we need to like bring a retreat, co-created there where you all are, so it's convenient. You can be like, oh, I just have to go a few minutes and here it all is for me. Because that's what I really wanted, right? I just called it in and here it is. Unlimited.
I was like, I'm laughing so hard because I was like, we don't do retreats. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're doing a retreat in Japan in September. Because I'm like, wait a minute, this is something my soul must have been reminding me to share this, because I had forgotten to share this when we did the dives into our thing, and I had already loaded it. So we are going to Japan. We had one of our professors in Starseed Academy in LightNet, amazing, Erica Rowe, and she was like, let's go to Japan. And Altera lives in Japan, and this is what we're doing. Ruben Langdon, Vivian Chavot, all of these people are coming together to be in Japan. You can kind of see the different things. There's an agenda here, the speakers. This is in September. So it's a great chance. Like, I was planning my trip to Japan. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like definitely bucket list material. Like, I was like, I want to see the technology. I want to go to the temples. So if anyone out there is wanting to come along with us in September, go to Starseed Academy and you'll see the link.
That's amazing.
I know.
I would want to come if I wasn't going to be in France.
I know, like, okay, we gotta put France on there too. So
Right.
we look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow night for our launch of our software. Again, you can go to Starseed Academy calendar and check out how to get on to the Zoom to check it out. So thank you so much, Adora. Have an amazing night.
Thank you. Blessings and love.